Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of just teaching you some straight stuff, I'm actually going to throw out some ideas to you. I want you to get the wheels turning a little bit. There's a whole point to this. Now, what I'm talking about here, there's no real hard evidence on it, but I'm going to present some viewpoints to you that might show that it might not be correct the way we've been taught it. Getting to my point here. During the early stages of the Second World War, it was presented as after the first year or so that Stalin and Hitler were best friends. They were BFFs. And a lot of people thought, I remember seeing on a documentary when I was a kid saying how Stalin wanted to rule the world with Hitler. That was his dream, that was his desire. And he even went so far as to, in the newspapers, to publish things like this. So check this one out. Shows, Hitler and Stalin as a happy little couple, and it says, wonder how long it will last. Oh, the honeymoon will last. Just showing how they're trying to paint the picture of just how the relationship is between the two of them. And then they go so far in this next one here to show how those two are fighting over the world, and just really trying to paint Soviets in a bad light. I mean, yeah, they always were in a bad light. But you look at it this way, once I studied a little deeper, and you find out that in the late 30s, Stalin put out several feelers to the West to find out where their disposition was, and he basically said, hey, we got a problem here. And he'd read Mein Kampf. He knew that what Hitler had in store for his country. And he reached out to France and Britain saying, what are we going to do maybe we should work together to solve this problem. And the French and British pretty much said to him, we view you as the bigger threat. And so they pretty much sent Stalin packing. And what it came down to was Stalin was willing to treat with whoever would treat with him. After the Munich Agreement of 1938, where the Allies signed over Czechoslovakia to Germany, Stalin saw very clearly that they were just going to give Hitler whatever he wanted. So and he knew he was the next prime target, and so that's a major reason why he went along with when Hitler finally reached out to him, because Stalin was willing to work with whoever worked with him, and Hitler reaching out to him through the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, basically he was doing it for the sake of buying time, not so much because he wanted an alliance with Hitler, not because he wanted anything to do with Hitler, but because he was doing it to buy time. Because one, he knew he made a mistake. Man, this hair's sticking straight up, isn't it? And he knew that he'd shot himself in the foot the year before, 1938, when he had purged the Red Army. 30,000 of the best officers were taken out and shot for no other reason that he didn't want to have a Napoleon on his hands. So it was easier just to grease his officer corps, which is what he did. Give him some time to rebuild that. Also choose to buy time. And that was a reason, not the only reason, but a reason why they agreed with the Germans to take the eastern half of Poland. This way, give them a little bit of a buffer zone. So, now, why was this information not really taught in the West? I looked into it and I thought about it. I have not found the hard evidence on this. I really don't think any of the governments will let this out anytime soon. Kind of like the whole Lusitania thing, where the documents on Lusitania, those have been classified for 150 years. So we're not going to know exactly what happened during that time when people wondered what the role of British government was in that, but that's a whole other story. But this one here, let me ask you this. Let me put it this way. Okay, after the fall of France, and you're in England, having all your cities get blown to pieces by the Luftwaffe during the Battle of Britain. How do you think it would have gone over with the British and French civilians had they found out that the Soviet Union put feelers out saying, hey, maybe the three of us together could contain this guy? And we told him no. How do you think that would have looked on the French or British governments? They wouldn't look very good. So what they start doing? They started doing stuff like the pictures I just showed you, showing like how Stalin wanted to rule the world with Hitler. He worshipped Hitler when he basically did not. They had some similar traits between the two of them, but the fact that they were just murderous and they just were all too willing to kill masses of people to get what they wanted. But other than that, they really weren't that much alike. They were similar from a point of view. This would be a side tangent where, I learned that both Stalin and Hitler were both severely brutalized by their fathers growing up. And I like how one of my favorite authors put it when he said how, just because, a lot of times, when kids are beaten up at home, yes, they sometimes tend to follow that pattern themselves, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be mass murderers like these two. Because they chose to go down that path. They were beaten to where, when Stalin was a baby, his father threw him to the ground so hard that there was blood in his urine for days. That's how brutal his father was. There's one time when Adolf was a young man, I think he was 9, and his father beat him unconscious, just to show those are things they had in common with extremely brutal fathers, but that's neither here nor there, just showing how they're similar versus not. So anyway, this is something I was just trying to give you to think about why the Soviet Union was painted the way it was up and through 1941. Because after 1941, when the United States was in the war, Russia was one of our best allies. I mean, they were painted as one of our best allies. So maybe for you to think on that. So there you go.